I'd like to start by telling everybody a little bit of a story here. It's a story that dates back to 1944. That was the year that the Naval Air Development Center was commissioned in my hometown of Warminster. For decades, a firefighter foam had been used on this base. Thousands upon thousands of gallons, year after year, was poured onto planes and the runway. And the foam and the chemicals used in this foam slowly seeped into the ground, continuing its downward voyage into our groundwater. Over those decades, Warminster and the surrounding communities grew. To provide water to these new communities, these community members, millions of dollars was spent on our public water system. As of 2015, the Warminster Municipal Authority served over 30,000 residents in Warminster alone. So I'd like everybody in here just to, for a moment, think of all of the kids, the grandparents, the parents that had been drinking this water that they thought was safe. And now imagine that it was your son or daughter, your parent or yourself. Now imagine how you would feel when in 2015 you found out that 50 years of those chemicals have been accumulating in your drinking water that contain a chemical that you've never heard of before, PFAS. In fact, a nationwide testing revealed that 3 of the most contaminated wells in the country existed right here, right in my hometown of Warminster. Immediately, we lost those millions of dollars of worth of infrastructure because now those drinking wells were unusable. To add insult to injury, my fellow residents were forced to pay extra money to have water shipped in from a nearby reservoir. But those financial costs were just an added burden. As a father of 2 daughters, married to a wife who's also a lifelong Warminster resident, all I could think about was the health and safety of ourselves and those of my neighbors. I can tell you from the thousands of conversations of parents and residents in the township, everyone has a story of cancer clusters in my neighborhood, in all the neighborhoods in Warminster. I have heard of nightmare stories of children diagnosed with rare cancers. I have shared hugs with more people than I can count who have been recently dealt with the blow of receiving a cancer diagnosis. The horrific fear that hangs over every single street in Warminster Township. Now, is the science there to directly connect each and every single one of those cases to the drinking water that we've been drinking for 50 years? Maybe not, but I ask you to tell that to the 9 people just on the one end of my street alone who have been recently diagnosed with cancer. My family has not been spared from the psychological damage from a cancer diagnosis. I was diagnosed with cancer in 2019. My worst nightmare realized. How do I protect my daughters from this diagnosis, who were 11 and 8 years of age at the time? Having go through chemotherapy, my daughters watched their dad lose his hair, turn pale, and eventually being hospitalized the day before Thanksgiving. I was again diagnosed with cancer approximately a month after getting sworn into this very position in 2023. This time it was the same cancer, but it was a rare cancer along the ureter, which the doctors had told me, quote, unquote, "You've been exposed to something." Other members of my family have been given blood tests only to confirm high levels of forever chemicals in their system. But I tell you this story to help you put these fears and emotions into context so that you can imagine your own family going through this and imagine your neighbors going through it. Now, what I want you guys to do is to visualize the emotions, that all those diagnoses, the anguish, etc. Think about how so many people across Pennsylvania have these same horrific experiences these last 10 years, even in your own district. 10 years. Think about this, 10 years we've known about this. And believe it or not, these chemicals are still legal to use today. In my personal view, my experience that I've laid out for you today, there's absolutely no excuse for this. Existing law places our communities in danger, but also the firefighters who still use these products. By the way, on a side note, when my family was receiving the blood tests, they would not test me because I was a firefighter. So that tells you something about how firefighters have been also exposed. Especially in a day when other products are available for the firefighters to use, it is way past due for us to take action in banning the use of these products. So I'm asking you for you to join me in taking this small but very much needed step in protecting our firefighters, our communities, and our children. And let's send a strong signal to the Senate with a unanimous vote in supporting House Bill 1261. Let's get this to the governor's desk, and let's not take another 10 years to get this done.